this is ACDC, Araceli and Colette, the dynamics change. And my name is Araceli, Transition Wealth Advisor and real estate investor in Canada and in the US. And I'm here with my partner, Colette.
Hi, everybody. You usually say introduce yourself, so now
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing
today.
I know what I'm doing. I'm on the ball this morning. Good morning, everybody. My name is Colette Rabba. I am a residential real estate broker in the GTA. And as my little, sorry, on this side, my sign says, I help home buyers, sellers, and investors in the GTA West. And that's why Araceli and I love to do this show, because we are both real estate investors and we both love real estate, and we both not really love finances. I don't love finances, but we both know how important finances are.
Absolutely.
So what's today? What's our show today?
Today, we're going to be talking about taking emotions out of investing. If you want to become a real estate investor, or you already are an investor, there's very much of a difference when you buy a property that is you're going to live in, or versus a property that you're going to be renting out or flipping, right? So Colette,
Exactly.
you agree with that?
100%. Yes. But there's always that little issue with seeing yourself in that property and seeing yourself, and would I live here, and having that kind of strange little connection to a property, because, you know, it's really hard to think like just an investor. If you were buying a stock, or if you were buying a business, like a bricks and mortar business, you really wouldn't feel the same way. There's no emotional connection. But because we live in dwellings, it's very difficult to not get emotionally invested when you're buying a residential property. So
I totally agree. But let me explain this to you, because there's a really distinct thing here. First of all, if you're going to become an investor, whether it is you're buying stocks or anything else, or buying investment property, you need to understand that investing is for the long term. And this is 7 to 10 years, right?
Or what about flipping? We're not counting flipping.
Correct. Well, flipping is a different animal. I just wanted for people to have that distinction,
right?
Because a lot of people think that they're going to be buying something, and if they flip it, sometimes the flip doesn't happen right away. Sometimes it requires quite a bit of work before you can actually flip it, right? So that's a separate part of the business, but it has to be a long term. If you're going to become a flipper, then you want to continue to do it for a long period of time. It's not like you do it once and that's it. You became a millionaire. It just doesn't happen that way, right? Everything for investing. So if you have a property that you are buying for an investment as a rental, I would say that 7 to 10 years is a good time for you to hold it, so you can accumulate enough equity, and then you receive cash flow in the meantime, right?
Yeah.
But the episode is about how we are attached to these properties emotionally, right? Especially if you live there, right? And I have an example, a very clear example, a property that somebody had to rent. They had to rent it because they were moving with an elder parent
and taking care of the parent. Yeah,
exactly. So, but she didn't know if she was going to be there for a long time, so she wanted to keep the property, so she decided to rent it. However, it didn't work out very well for her, because she was very attached to the property, because she had lived in it, she had made changes that they were very specific to her. And when the renter comes in, guess what? Now they don't like what you've done, and now they want to change it. They want to change the color. They want to move furniture around. They don't keep the place as clean as you would want it to be. And that is the things that we're going to talk about here today, because if you're renting a property, you need to see it as basically an object, right? And there's nothing you can do about people changing colors or having certain pictures that you wouldn't use, right? Or the furniture doesn't match, or the furniture is too small, furniture is too big, right? A lot of people are very visual, and they want to have certain things in a certain way. So when you have to detach yourself and just set it up as a space, as long as they don't damage anything. Paint is okay to change. You can change it at any time. Of course, carpets, I avoid carpets in my rentals because they're very hard to clean up, right? And they get bugs and everything there that I don't like, right? But if you do happen to have carpet, you may have to just replace it every time that you have a new renter.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's also other scenarios where that might not be possible. So just like your lady who had to, you know, sort of was forced to rent her property because she wanted to keep it and didn't know how long she was going to stay with her parent. But there's also scenarios where you buy a property that you want to retire into, let's say.
Yeah.
So you have to almost be okay with someone saying the worst case scenario, it's just walls, it's just cabinets, it's just flooring. If they wreck it, whatever it is, you have to be, you know, not okay with it, but you have to accept it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And say, you know what, in 5 years or 10 years, whenever I decide to retire and move there myself, I can start fresh. And that's, so the number one thing, the only thing I wanted to say to anybody out there who's looking for to buy an investment and taking the emotion out of the investment is to have a plan. Like that's ultimately, I know it's a big one thing, but ultimately it's because if you don't have that set guideline and that pro forma and your numbers and your projections of what you're going to make in the next how many years, these are, and how much you're going to spend on renovations. All these things are very, very important when you finally make that decision to buy.
Yeah.
So how do you do it? And if you don't have a plan, you might as well just forget it. Don't even start. In my opinion.
And this is one of the, I think this is what happened to this friend of mine, because she had already customized the space. She had bought really high-end appliances and paint and hardwood floors. So when she come into the house and see that these people aren't taking care of these items that are high-end, of course she's like, oh my God, I hated it. And she really hated being a landlord. Right. And because nobody was going to be good enough to take care of your property. So just
nobody ever is.
Nobody is, right?
No.
So when Colette was saying have a plan, if you already know that this property is going to be for a rental, you need to put items that are for a rental property. Don't use high-end appliances that have all these buttons that could go, you know,
break
and break, right? So all of these things, then you will keep it for your own use. However, if you happen to have it, either you want to replace it and take with you the high end and put just a regular stove, for example, or you have to be aware that something could go wrong and that maybe you're going to be renting this place for 5 years and you know that you're going to have to replace the appliances after that if you want to move back in, or maybe sell it or something like that. So
that's goes hand in hand with the plan. So if you say, okay, I'm going to rent a house, and what's the best, you know, something like appliances are so simple to say, okay, now I have to spend some money on new appliances. What's the cheapest and the best way to go? You know, in my rental properties, I go to the scratch and dent place first. There's nothing wrong with the appliance. There might be a dent on the side or a scratch or something like that, but you know, I'm not worried about it at that point. I know I spent some good money. It looks good. The people come in, they don't know I bought it that way. They might realize the people before that did the dent, and what's the big deal? It's still a functional, let's say, fridge in this case. So it's one of these things where if you have the plan and you say, okay, this is how much I'm going to spend, don't overspend. That is the key, what Araceli is trying to say. And it's not just on appliances. Let's say you have a furnished rental. So I also have a furnished rental. I didn't spend a ton of money on it because I fully expect that person, if they're there for more than a week, there's going to be spills. There's going to be, you know, nicks on furniture. There's going to be stains. So whatever it is, I'm okay with it. I'm not going to have to start again every time there's a renter. I know that. I know things can be cleaned. You buy the furniture that have slip covers that you can take them off and wash. things like that. It's really manageable, but you have to have a plan and think about it and talk to people who've already done it, like Araceli and I, and we can give you these pointers.
Yeah, exactly. So that is the first thing. And you know what? The plan goes for everything, Colette, not only for buying a property, becoming a rental, but for your life as well, right? And that's why I always emphasize people, take care of your finances first, because from there you have the ability to invest in other things, whether it's the stock market, whether it's a new property, anything else, just, and there you require a plan. You need a plan for everything. You know, you need a plan for your food. You need a plan for your exercise.
Yeah.
The more you plan, the easier it is, because if you have to adjust, then you have something to adjust. But if you have nothing, you basically are, you know, free for all. Whatever happens, happens. And then you don't get the results that you want. Then you become frustrated, like this, you know, friend I have, because she didn't have she really didn't plan to do it. It just happened to be. But I think that she should have just sat down and said, okay, what is going to happen in the long term? And that's what she became very frustrated with the property, right?
Yeah. And, you know, like I want to say, it's, you know, a plan has to do with research too. So imagine instead of saying you're going to buy a house, you're going to buy a car. So what do you need? So that's the first thing you want. I have kids. I need, you know, a back seat. So, okay, this is my deduction, right? So I need I need an SUV. I have 4 kids. I have a dog. Right. And then you say, okay. And so first thing is, what are your needs? What are your wants? Because maybe you want heated seats. You don't need it, but you want it. And third is price. So it's always going to be something based on price. What can I get for my money? Do I have to buy a used car? What do I really want? Do I want a brand new build? Let's say in the case of a house too. Lots of people go and buy new houses, not realizing there's still things that have to be done. Even if it's from the builder, you still have to go in and buy window treatments. Maybe they didn't include a finished basement. Maybe you have to do air conditioner that's not included in the purchase. So all of these things you have to plan out to realize, this is what I want, this is what I need, and how much do I have? Let's just go from there. And on top of it is, what kind of a renter do I want? Do I want a full-time renter? Do I want an Airbnb? Do I want something that I can go and visit? Let's say you want to buy a house in the States, like you were saying. Where do you want to be? I am my own target market, let's say in this case. Where do I want to vacation? Do I want to go to Florida? No, not really. So I'm not going to buy in Florida. So sometimes making a plan is by deduction too. Don't forget, it doesn't have to be, I don't know what I want, but I want this and I want that. Sometimes people don't know what they want.
And that is a very good exercise to do. Absolutely. So that's what you need to sit down, you know, think about this scenario, right? So if you have a family, is you, your husband or your wife, and you also have 3 children, would you be buying a mini like that, you know, or a car that has only 2 seats?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, right? So you have to feel the need that you have right now, and then you have to go within the budget to do that, right?
Right. But it's that target market that if you don't know who your prime renter will be, that's the first question. Who do you want to rent to? So the thing is, if you say, okay, I want to buy a rental property in downtown Toronto, you have to know who your renter is going to be. They're going to be very different than a renter who is in Sault Ste. Marie, right?
For sure.
So, and how much?
Also depending on the type of dwelling you have, because if you have a single detached house with 3 bedrooms, most likely you're going to get probably a family with a couple kids. Right?
Absolutely. Right.
And if you have a condo that is only 500 square feet, that might be, you know, for 1 person.
Right.
And the use of it will be totally different that when you have 3 kids versus when you have only an adult living there. So obviously the wear and tear is different.
And you know what else too, like that. So number 1, yes, you have to do the plan. Number 2, once you have the plan to know who your target market is, when it comes to actually finding a renter, it will be much, much easier. You'll be able to say no I hate to say, you'll be able to say no to a lot of people, but you'll be able to say yes to that very specific demographic. And it's based on what you first initially wanted to do.
Exactly.
So it goes with Airbnb too. When you market an Airbnb, for example, if you buy a property that you know there's neighbors and you know they're cranky old people, you know you can't market to the partiers, right? And you know you can't buy a property that has, you know, this fantastic yard with, you know, lots of toys and lots of games and, you know, trampoline. Forget it, because you know it's going to be Party City and your neighbors are going to hate you. So that's what I mean when it comes to finding the right property and then the right tenant to fit that property. So it's very, you know, we love the business, we love doing it, but if you don't know what you're doing, it can be a little frightening. It can be just like anything else, right? Scary.
Absolutely. Well, it's, you know, it's always like that. And remember, the devil is in the details. So if you don't know those details, then you're going to become very frustrated with the investment. And then you're going to say, forget about it. I don't want to do this anymore. This is not for me. Real estate investing could be very rewarding, but you need to have that plan. And if you don't have that plan, if you're thinking about becoming a real estate investor, get together with somebody that is already doing it, because they will tell you what they've gone through and how those mistakes, sometimes, you know, I've made lots of mistakes, and I can tell you what to avoid and what you get, how you have to think before you jump in to make the decision of being a real estate investor. That is a very, very difficult spot, but if you really want it, make all your due diligence yourself. Or you jump in.
You'll feel way more confident. And honestly, like when Araceli says she's made mistakes, we all have. I've made mistakes too. I'm my worst client, you know, because I have a plan and then I don't stick to the plan. Or sometimes I think, well, maybe I want this or maybe I want that. And the other thing too, so if I want to say a second tip would be to always have a plan B. And I know there's lots of people saying, no, you know, I'm going to stick to my plan and, you know, blinders on and that's it. But things like COVID happen where, you know, Araceli, you have properties in the US and you can't get to them. The borders are closed. How are you supposed to renovate? You know, that's the tricky part. So if you don't have that plan B, just as a buffer, just to make you feel better, it doesn't mean that you're going to necessarily do it or have to go there, but have that plan B just in case. Because shit hits the fan sometimes.
That's right.
You have no control. So
I call that being flexible.
Yes.
As in life, you don't know when something is going to be like COVID. That was a big thing for everybody. But there is other transitions in life that we go through, and that sometimes they're very unexpected. You have somebody that got ill, or you get you're ill and you can't work and you don't have the same level of income. And that's why we like and we love real estate investing, because that provides you with a steady income. But you need to do it right, because otherwise, if you have the wrong tenant, if you don't fix the property right, there's always some things that are going to cost you money. Or maybe you have a tenant that doesn't pay the rent. Oh my goodness, that's something that you don't want, right? So you have to be prepared. You never know what is going to happen. But if you do have that flexibility to say, okay, if this didn't happen this way, what can I do with it? Can I turn around and sell it? What can I do in order to make this a little bit easier? So,
well, I was going to say, so if you're getting into tenants and landlords and knowing, you have to know the law. So, you know, hey, we're getting tip number 3 without knowing that we're doing tips. So yeah, knowing the law, and that's the hardest part. If you don't know anything about landlord, especially in Ontario, if you don't know landlord tenant law, it's very, very tricky. So please talk to one of us, or, you know, even talk to, there's lots of resources out there, but make sure your resources are the right resources and it's not just, you know, funny business. So a lot of really, really bad scenarios happen because tenants take advantage. And the law in Ontario, just, you know, to give you a little snippet, is geared towards helping the tenant, not the landlord. So it's very difficult when you don't know what you're doing. I see it all the time. I'm a member of a lot of Facebook groups too that are for specific for landlords. And a lot of it is, what do I do? This has happened. Now, what do I do? So when I read them, I think there are lots of things you should be able to do before you get yourself into the situation.
Yeah.
And if you did this, back at the beginning, you would have been able to help yourself not get into this situation. And one of the big things is, honestly, using a realtor, using the system of realtors vetting their own tenants before they even rent to them. So when I have a lease, a property that's ready to lease, I put it on MLS because I want another realtor to present that client to me, and I can ask those questions of that. It's not guaranteed, but it's another buffer to say, okay, like this person can vet, they actually know these people. And if it's somebody that you can vet and all their paperwork and all their, you as a landlord, you still have to do the due diligence on that tenant, the potential tenant. But if it's coming from another realtor, it's pretty likely they know that person personally and can vouch for them. Yes. So there are these little tips that we do as realtors. We talk to each other. We're not, there are realtors that aren't just all competitive and nuts. We want to work with people to get good tenants in the good properties. So it works both ways. So that's another tip. Sorry.
Yeah, that's good. So absolutely. So just remember, today's December 1st. This is really fantastic. The year went by so fast. And now we have only 1 month before 2022. So if you want to become an investor in 2022, you got to do it. You got to start planning now. What are you going to do? Where are you going to start? Where are you going to be buying? Or you want to be a flipper, or do you want to hold and rent? So those are the questions that you need to really ask yourself. And so just get involved, start reading books and talk to professionals. Call us, right? And just have a chat and see what you want to do, because the longer you plan, the better your success will be. So do you have any other tips for our audience?
I was going to say I have tip number 4, but actually it should be tip number 1.
Okay.
Tip number 1 is to have the courage to do it.
Yeah.
Have the courage to even explore that option. So I think that for me was the hardest personally. I don't know about you, but to have the courage to say, yeah, well, why not? I can do it. Yeah, I can do it. And having a plan helps that courage. It raises it up. So, honestly, people say that to me all the time. Oh my God, it's amazing that you did this. It's wonderful. And I'm sure they say that to you too. And I'm no different than anyone else. I just had the courage to do it. So ultimately, if you need a little boost, if you need that reassurance that you can do it yourself as well, that's why we are here for you. We're here to answer questions. We would love to help you get your goals, meet your goals, and really exceed your goals too.
Absolutely. And now it is even more important to have a plan because of the changes that are happening in the world. I don't know if you are not in Ontario, which is Canada, the province has gone up in value in terms of the property so much. And we also have other things like inflation has gone up quite a lot. Things in the pandemic change, the work environment, lots of things have changed. But the one thing that never changes is that people need a place to live. And sometimes it's harder to start in one location, but maybe you can explore some other places. And that's what we're going to be doing with you next year to show you how you can find that place where you can invest.
And you know what? There are lots of things that the general public doesn't even know what's coming. But when you talk can't tell you, you got to stay in touch with us because there are things that will make a huge difference when you decide to invest and what kind of residential investment you want to make based on the things that we have no control over, like what the city is, what the zoning bylaws, what the cities are telling us that we're allowed and not allowed to do. When it's highest and best use, if you don't know what highest and best use is, go back. I think it was.
There's another episode. I'm going to link it.
Yeah,
Hello?
it's terms number 4, I think in the previous video
Yep.
that we talked about highest and best use, and that changes sometimes. So really pay attention to when you're buying a property, what that means. Also, there are tons of things that people generally don't know, like environmental issues. So if depending on where you're buying, even in Ontario, even in the city, there are places where you really should not buy because of the properties before and what was there before, and the land that you are buying a house on. Things like a power plant, let's say.
Yep.
There are things in the soil that you may not want to inherit as
Yeah,
a
and in
homeowner.
some cases, they will give you a time period. So you cannot build, you can do anything for a certain
Right.
period of time. In some cases, it's years, depending on what's in the soil.
Right,
To make
but
it safe for people to be there.
yeah, and so my whole point, to go around the block with this is when you don't use a realtor that knows the local, properties, and because the way things are going with prices these days, people go crazy. They don't do their due diligence.
Yeah.
And that's the number one thing why realtors get in trouble, because they get taken to court because they did not do their due diligence for their client, and they rush them, and there's multiple offers and there's excitement at that moment. So I know we're getting off track, but this is the thing that's so important when you have a plan to say, ultimately, I need a property that is safe, that is clean, that I don't have to worry about in the future when I go sell it. So these are all things that go hand in hand with finding a good professional to help you when you decide to buy.
Absolutely. So this is great, Colette. Thank you so much. And remember, if you want to become an investor, a real estate investor, let us know. And if there's anything that we haven't talked about it yet, we're here to help you. And if we don't know it, we'll go find out what that is and give you an answer. So thank you, Colette. And then we'll see you next week.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.